So this is going to be hopefully the last video in the REST API course. All we need to do is add a way for users to update their profile from a mobile application, or in other words, using the REST API. So if they go to the account screen, they need a way to see this data in an application, in a mobile app. So we need this data accessible through the REST API, and they need to be able to update their account data and view it basically. So just viewing a profile. So let's take a look here at the code. So all we need to do is create a serializer for the account data. So I'm going into account, going into API, going into serializers, and then we need to build two views, for one for displaying that data and then one for updating that data. So it should be pretty straightforward. All right, so this is going to be called class account properties serializer, and it's going to be serializers dot model serializer like we've done before. We're just going to override the meta class, so class meta, specify the model of account, nothing new here, and specify some fields. So what fields? Well, we need the primary key, we need the email. Whoa, how did I get to the next line? We need the email, and we need the username. So let's go username. Then so the primary key, they won't be able to update, but I do want it accessible, because if I have the primary key, then I can pretty much do anything. I can do an update, do a delete, query a user, everything is available. And also when we build the application, we're going to be using the room persistence library to store the account data locally. That way that they don't have to query their account data all the time, because chances are the account data isn't going to change very often. So we're going to build an SQLite, have a SQLite database locally on the Android app, and then we're going to use the primary key for the server as the primary key in the local database also. So that's why we want access to this primary key. And that's going to be our serializer. Primary key, email, username. Pretty straightforward. Now let's go into views. Okay, so coming down here, we have our registration view that's already in there. We need to build two new views. So I'm actually going to copy this heading because it's going to be kind of similar. We need the API view. This is actually going to be a GET request. And we need to add a permission. So we need to import some permissions. So I'm going to go into the blog app, go into API, go into views, and I'm going to grab some of this stuff. So we need the is authenticated, and we also need API view, and we need permission classes. So I'm grabbing these imports here, copying them, going over to my project, pasting them in. So I have framework, decorators, API view, permission classes, REST framework permissions, and is authenticated. Now down here, I can specify some permissions. So at permissions, or permission classes, sorry, at permission classes, and I want to reference that is authenticated class. And remember to do a comma here, because if you don't use a comma, you will get an error and get some issues. So this is obviously not going to be called registration view. This is going to be called account properties view. And inside account properties view, I want to do a try catch. I think there might be, no, there's not one up here, or a try except block, sorry. I want to try except account dot does not exist. So if the account exists, then we can get it. So account equals request dot user. And remember, they should be authenticated if they're viewing this view, because we have the is authenticated permission here. So we should be able to access the user object through the token that's being passed in the request. If they can't, then I want to return a response with a status of HTTP 404 not found. So HTTP 404 not found. So if the user account is found, then I want to check the request. So if request.method equals get, and remember, I don't believe you need to do this check, but I always do. The serializer equals the account property serializer, which I don't believe I imported. So let's grab that account properties serializer. Let's import that from the serializers. Account property serializer. Make sure I spelled that correctly. I'm passing the account to the serializer, and then I'm returning the serialized data through the response. So serializer.data. That is going to be our account properties view. All it's going to do is take the account object, serialize the data into JSON so that it's accessible through the REST API. Now the second one is going to be an update view. So I'm going to copy almost everything here, paste that down below, and change some things. So this is going to be a put request. That's the first change. And the second change is going to be the name. So this is going to be update account view. We'll start by getting that account object just like we did before. And here's where it's going to get different. So if request.method equals put, that's the request that we're checking for. Then I want to set the serializer equal to account property serializer, pass the account, and pass the data that's part of the request. So that's going to be the updated data. Next, I'm going to declare a data variable for returning once we've updated all of the new data. So I'm checking if the form is, or not the form, the serializer is valid. We've done this a few times before, so you should be familiar with this. If it's valid, I want to save the data, and then I want to print a response to the user. So response equals account update success, and then I just want to return a response and do data equals data. Nothing fancy. If that doesn't work, then I want to return response serializer.errors and do status equals status. Let's do HTTP 400 bad request. So something was wrong with the request, whether it was the data that they used or whatever. Something went wrong. So I'm pressing Control S to save that. And now let's go into urls.py and add those new URLs. So getting the new views first of all. So there's going to be the account. Actually, I'm just going to copy them so I don't have to type them out. That way I don't make a spelling mistake too. So account properties view, and the other one is going to be update account view. So adding those up to the top, and now let's add those to here. I like these alphabetical actually. So login and then register, and P comes after L. MNLOP. Yeah, so after L. I'm just reading out the alphabet to myself. So pasting that in. This first one is going to be just properties, and I'm going to pass the account properties view, and this can be properties. And then the next one, let's copy that line again. If you don't know how to copy in Sublime Text, by the way, by default, it's Control-Shift-D. So all three of those things pressed at once. Now this one's going to be properties/update, and I'll just make this update. And there's our URLs. So let's go to Postman, and let's test those. All right, so let's just copy one of these other requests, and I'm going to make a new one here. It's going to be a GET request, API account login. This is going to be API account properties, and I need to grab a token. So let's go in here and see if there's a token that I can. There's a token. So authorization is the header, because remember, if we don't have the token, the API will not be able to authenticate the user on the server. So we have our token here. Maybe I'll try it without a token just to show you that it doesn't work. So I'm going to cut that, get rid of that, send the request. Authentication credentials were not provided, which is what we expect. Now I'm going to add the token. So there's our token, press send, and then there is the information for that particular user. If I was to get a token for a different user on the server, then it would give me the information to that user. So pretty cool. Nice to see that it's working on the first try. Now let's try to update. So this one's going to be a put request. We need our authorization, we need our token, but now we need the parameters for updating. I don't believe we need to specify the primary key, so I'm going to leave that, but we do need to specify the email. If we have to specify the primary key, then we have a problem. So I'm going to change this to mitch@tabian.com instead of .ca just to see a change, and the username is going to be Mitch. I'll just do MT. So let's click send and see if we get a successful response. And we do not. I want to make sure that it says method put not allowed. So that is a strange error. I actually don't know why it would be giving that error of all errors. We have the primary key, the email, and the username. Let's just double check all of this right here. We're using a put request here, so that should be fine. We have URLs, so properties/update. Let's go to Postman and just double check that. Properties/update. Yeah, so like looking at this, it looks to me like everything is correct. So there's only potentially a couple things that could be wrong. Number one is maybe they need you to have the primary key. So I think the primary key was, I think it was 7. No, it says method not allowed. All right, I'm going to pause the video here and see what's going on. I made a very stupid mistake. I didn't pass the update view to the URL. So I knew that that error was very strange. It was something that didn't really make sense. It shouldn't have been happening. So anyway, we have our update URL. We have the new email, mitch@tabian.com, and the new username, MT. So let's see what happens when I press send. It says account update success. So now I'm going to actually create a new URL here. I'm going to copy this, paste this in, and we're going to use this to check to see if it worked. So grabbing the authorization header, grabbing the token, and we have a get request. So API account properties, authorization, no body. Let's send that. Primary key is still the same. We have Mitch Tabian or mitch@tabian.com, so that's the new one, and then also the new username. So everything's working as we expect. We could also go back here and change it back to the way it was. So mitch@tabian.ca, let's click send, account update success. Now let's query that information, and then there you see that it is updated. So that is going to be it for this video. And as of right now, this is going to be the end of actually the REST API course. And I'm finally ready to move on to building the app. I've been waiting for this for a long time, trying to get done the Python Django course, trying to get done the REST API course. And now we are going to build an Android app. So of course, you'll need to drag all of your files into your production environment if you have one. If you don't have a production environment, I built openapi.xyz so that you guys can use it using the Android app. But basically what it is it holds all the URL endpoints that we just built. Like it's identical to what we just built. So if you want to make your own, go buy a domain, host it, all that stuff. I have videos on that. You can go to codingwithmitch.com/courses. There is a hosting a Django website with DigitalOcean. That'll show you how to host your own website. You can put up the REST API, put up the website, all that kind of stuff, and you can then build an app to interact with it. If you don't, like I said, you can just use openapi.xyz. You will need to be a codingwithmitch.com member to use this API. I needed to add some kind of a charge because I couldn't have people just using request after request after request because I have to pay for that. It's not free for me to host this and build an API for you guys to use. So I needed to charge something. But anyway, this app is going to be very, very cool. I'm still developing it, but it's going to be using Kotlin, architecture components, architect navigation components, Dagger 2, MVVM architecture, RX Java. I'm going to use Kotlin coroutines, room persistence library. We're going to have a cache. It's going to authenticate users through the REST API. It's going to be very cool. It's going to be kind of an all-encompassing course, and you're going to have a lot of really, really valuable skills coming out of it. So hopefully you enjoyed the REST API course, and I turned off my light. I forgot I need to keep that thing on, but this is the end of the video, so it's too late now. So thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.